Workplaces can definitely use some tools to counter possible human errors. However, if these tools are not designed well enough, then they risk adding to the complexity. Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Mind Brunch. This is the fourth video as part of the series on Design for Error. Checklists are effective tools for increasing the accuracy of work and to prevent errors. They come in handy, especially in such situations when the worker is interrupted midway to completing a process. Experts opine that the task of verifying with the checklist should be handled by two operators, with one going through the list and the other completing the steps. But this is not what we see in practice. Quite often, an operator completes a task, and a while later, the other one checks for the completion of individual steps. Leniency can set in pretty early in this exercise. The same is seen in arrangements, where multiple people are responsible for going through checklists. Each person tasked with checking the list may assume that others should have completed, and they themselves need not go through it again. It isn't just with the use of high-end technology that the airline industry leads the rest, but it is also in this field, where a correct form of checklists is used. Both the pilots work in tandem while completing tasks, following a checklist. It is seen as a critical component of safety. However, it is surely surprising that other industries are yet to follow this practice, although the results are clearly visible. The medical industry can certainly make use of more checklists, especially during operation procedures and while administering medicine. Now let us see how good checklists can be designed. An aspect of bad checklists is a rigid order of the steps to follow. In the rare event that a step needs to be skipped, in the hopes of getting back at a later point in time, there is a risk that it never happens. Electronic checklists offer better management of lists, since one can complete all the subtasks in a non-linear manner, and be alerted should they miss a step. In the previous video, we briefly came across some of the shortcomings on the part of employees themselves, along with the work culture, when it comes to committing errors. A similar attitude is mirrored when it comes to reporting errors. It certainly sounds like a straightforward task, but it is easier said than done. Social and cultural expectations ensure that in most cases, errors aren't reported, or sometimes not actively sought to be identified. This is especially true when a worker fears a backlash from his coworkers, or worse, contempt from management, for actively pointing out imperfections in the workplace. Even workplaces in general fear the thought of appearing as faulty, should they accept mistakes on their part. Most institutions work tirelessly to maintain an image that shows otherwise. The only solution to all of this is to just admit the presence of errors, determine the causes, correct them, and prevent future errors. As discussed earlier in this series, the Toyota Production Systems is a leader in quality management. Jidoka, loosely translated as automation with a human touch, is a philosophy that encourages error detection by workers, reporting of the same, and in some cases, halting the workflow until the said error is rectified. The 5 whys method is then implemented to understand the cause of an error, so it can be fixed. Another system that ensures correct placement of parts during assembly is called poka-yoke. Here, special jigs and fixtures are employed to ensure proper placement of parts. A simple block of wood can also be effective in ensuring the correct angle of placement. NASA is famous for being a pioneer in space exploration and related technology. In one of the previous videos, we had seen their research in the field of biocapsules, which can be placed under the skin to maintain specific stats in the body. But this may come as completely surprising to you. NASA also runs a voluntary error reporting service for the airline industry. And this has proved to be just the right kind of convenience that the pilots needed. Given the organization of this particular industry, it isn't beneficial to report to one's employer. So, enter NASA, a neutral organization that also promises complete anonymity. Here's how it works. When a pilot notices or commits a mistake, they report it through an authorized channel. NASA, will then use the related contact information to connect with the pilot and get more details. Once a case is made, the intended party is notified, while the details of the pilot who reported are erased from the system. In this manner, semi-autonomous pilots can bravely report on inconsistencies, and the entire industry benefits from this service, reducing many future accidents. All this while, we saw how errors happen, and the way they are perceived. But how do we know that there has been one? Action slips are relatively easier to detect, since they involve a step being missed, or wrongly performed. However, this happens when there's a feedback loop that can inform about a slip. If the output of an action cannot be observed, slips go unnoticed. Memory slips are difficult to detect, since they involve no visible signs, except in such cases, when inaction leads to unexpected outputs, and this get detected. Mistakes can also be immune to detection, as they happen after setting a wrong goal. All the actions that follow lead to the intended goal, except that the latter itself is flawed. Even a careful monitoring of every step fails to throw up any wrongdoings. In such cases, initial feedback of actions might lead to a misdiagnosis that the goal will be ultimately reached. Memory-based mistakes are the hardest to detect, as the information that is forgotten is the entire plan, or a considerable portion of it. While detecting mistakes can take a while, explaining their cause can be a tough task, since, in many cases, personal biases intervene in the place of an objective judgment. This might include providing reasons that arise due to an imagined familiarity, or discounting issues taught to be too trivial to influence a mistake. Let's consider an example to explore further. Imagine yourself driving from your city to another. As you are on the highway, unknowingly, you take a wrong turn. As you continue on a since changed route, you observe billboards and other visual aids that indicate you may be heading elsewhere, and not the intended destination. Many people in a similar situation come up with a made-up logic to convince themselves that things are going in the right manner. Like, the billboard for a city you are driving towards might be a commercial advertisement, and not indicative of the actual place you are in right now. Or when faced with unfamiliar buildings and topology, people try to explain it away, that things have changed since the last time they were there. Have you been involved in such a situation? How far did you travel before realizing your mistake? They say hindsight is a perfect 20/20. Barak Fischhoff, a psychologist, concluded after a series of tests that people often make complete sense of the events only when outcomes are known. They can easily make out how the series of events led to an outcome. While testing with just a string of individual events at hand, participants mostly missed predicting the right outcome. What this shows is the bias investigators might have while studying accidents. It is preemptive that the investigative team place themselves in the exact situation before the event occurred, in the midst of the ongoing action. This is also one of the reasons why some reports take longer times to complete, as the aforementioned activity is difficult to simulate. This was part 4 of the series on Design for Error. The main source is the book, The Design of Everyday Things, by Don Norman. You can find the link to purchase the book in the description, down below. Are there enough safety measures at your workplace to ensure prevention of errors? Share them in the comments section. Give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new, and share. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you for watching this episode of Mind Brunch.